I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Ariadna Navarro.
One brand matters more than ever because if the technology has enabled the brands to sort of relate to you quite similarly, then how do you what is the experience with the brand? What is the relationship with the brand? And what does that experience solve for? And what are you delivering in that experience that is actually unique?
Ariadna Navarro is the Chief Growth Officer and Chief Strategy Officer at VSA Partners, an agency that designs for a better experience. VSA Partners works with a wide range of businesses, from blue-chip companies like IBM, AT&T, and Google, to B2B brands like Cargill, Curia, and Ever.AG, to startup disruptors like Black Telehealth and Robinhood. Ariadna helps clients identify and unlock growth potential by connecting business strategy to brand and experience strategy to relentlessly and cohesively deploy a company's ambition. My interview with Ariadna Navarro is coming right up. But first...
Hey, creators, podcasters, and brands, if you work on Instagram at all, you have to be tired of the limitations of link in bio. Well, there's a solution. Stampede.social is the ultimate Instagram tool that will change the way you engage with customers, fans, and followers. With Stampede.social, you go beyond a single bio link and instead slide into your fans' DMs. Fire off an automated direct link to wherever you want to send them straight from your posts and lives. This link is only sent to the fans who ask for it, so you'll know exactly who loves your content the most. And Stampede.social does so much more. It gives you back the power of knowing who is engaging with you. It makes it easy to engage with them using AI, and using Stampede.social gives you insights about how your Instagram profile is performing with super robust reports. Drive more clicks, more sales, more followers, and have more time to do what you really love, creating that amazing content. Join the ranks of the world's savviest Instagram creators who already trust Stampede.social. It's a true game changer and will transform the way you connect and engage with your Instagram fans forever. Just for you creators, use our limited time exclusive promo code MPN50. That's MPN50 and get 50% off any monthly or annual subscription tier at checkout. Are you ready to create a stampede of fans back to your content? Don't miss out on this special deal. Head over to Stampede.social. You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Joe Singer and Tom Stallings host a great podcast called Take a Breath. Joe, tell us what you talk about on the show.
Yeah, so Take a Breath is a podcast for people who are really trying to build something valuable in their lives, whether it's a business or a marriage or whatever it is you're trying to do. We help you with some hacks to build your best life.
Wow. Where can people subscribe?
You could find us on marketingpodcasts.net as well as mergeanalytics.com. And you can also find us on LinkedIn and YouTube.
And wherever you get your podcasts. So go subscribe.
Ariadna, welcome to On Brand.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to chat.
I am thrilled to chat. You know, just in reading your bio, your work sounds like a heavy lift.
It is. I mean, we cover everything from your bread and butter brand definitional work, and that means who do you want to be, where do you want to go, who's your audience, and how do you go about it, all the way to business and organizational transformation, meaning companies and organizations that may be at a pivotal time and need to rethink their value proposition or need to rethink the structure of the organization or need to rethink how they engage with their employee base or their sales force. So we really cover the gamut, and then all the way to, all the way to campaign work as well. So I'm never bored. I can say that.
Yeah, I would say so. But you know, all of that is as you mentioned deploys back to, you know, when we talk about growth, there's some sort of vision in mind, and you know, in talking about deploying a company's ambition, does the work ever involve setting or defining what that flag is that you're planning?
Yeah, I mean, quite often. And what's interesting and and we've seen a little bit of a change, is we at VSA and me personally in my trajectory in this field, we see brand as a business asset. And what that means is the brand is the best articulated reflection of what that business ambition is. In some organizations, they see brand as sort of fluff. Oh, brand's just advertising. Brand's what you put out there, and they don't always necessarily connect that business ambition and that business objectives and your vision of where do you want to go to what the brand has to do. What is the lift of the brand has to do, and how can the brand help actually drive that business? So that definitional work that you're asking, and that sort of defining that perspective and where you want to go, and it's really important that you do that with senior leadership so that you can connect the dots of brand to business.
That's such a great point that you just made, and I'm sure that many listening, perked up when at the idea of that kind of that other way of thinking of brand as fluff, because I feel like we practitioners end up encountering that, but especially as tied to your work when you're talking about actual business growth, classifying brand as an asset is tremendously is an important mindset, really. So, how can you take that mindset and bring it into the work of planning for growth?
Yeah, I mean, we try to, we do a lot of primary research in the work that we do. And we don't just do it because we love research. We do for sure. And we love talking to customers, and we love doing giant quant studies or small ones. But part of it is to be able to build a business case for what you're recommending, and to take a little bit of the subjectivity out, so that if you do have a client that thinks of, oh, brand is a cost center versus an investment in your business,
Yeah.
you can at least substantiate that and support that with data that says, hey, here's what the lift is going to be if you do this, or here's how much this could increase consideration, which in the end, if you look at your giant pool base, this would equate to X amount of dollars. So we really try to break it down as much as possible. And again, in doing research, we really try to come to the table, quite prepared to have an objective conversation. And we have this really cool methodology called P to P to E, which is promise to performance to experience, that basically aims to get at what are the promises, not just the promises you want to make, because we all know companies love to talk to themselves, but the promises that you can make that are important to your audience and that are white space, meaning that no one else is talking about it.
Yeah.
And then what are those needs that you can fulfill? And then what are the experiences that will help push that promise forward? So when you're doing that definitional work that you're asking about, Nick, and you come to the table armed with that data, it's an easier conversation, because then you can say, okay, cool, can we go here or there? Do we tweak it this way or that way? Or, okay, I'm looking at this data, that's interesting. Can we extrapolate that into X? Let's go now do some qual and find out the Y. So it's detective work.
Yeah.
It's how I like to look at my job, and it's obviously really fun. The process is really fun.
I always like the different metaphors that people go with. I in brand building, I always think of it like as a mining project, and you're trying to chip away and find the useful insights that you can then bring to the surface to capitalize on the value. I want to rewind quick. You mentioned your process. Were they? I think because just of a marketing background, I have the 4 P's locked in my head. What were there were some P's? Were they all P's?
It was P to P to E. So promise to performance to experience.
Promise.
And the reason we've brought experience in, which is not part of the original, well, not really part of the original P's, although P for promotion, but this is really
Yeah.
different is because for a while, and I am, I pontificate, so stop me because I'm very
No.
passionate about this, but I've been
This is a
saying like,
podcast. You've been invited on
fair.
expressly for pontificating. So
People might want to pause and go get a coffee and come back. No, but I mean, I've been saying for a very long time that technology is an equalizer, not a differentiator. And what I mean by that is, for the last decade, we have innovated, or we brands have brought innovation through business model innovation, meaning, you still get a car that picks you up, but it's now on an app. No, hey, that's Uber. You're still going to buy a mattress, but hey, now you do that, through tech, and now it comes in a box. And so there's not a lot of product innovation, but there's a lot of experience innovation. And what that means is that one brand matters more than ever, because if the technology has enabled the brands to sort of relate to you quite similarly, then how do you what is the experience with the brand? What is the relationship with the brand? And what does that experience solve for? And what are you delivering in that experience that is actually unique? So it's a hard conversation to have with clients sometimes, who have invested so much in product and services and their technology and what they do and their features. And we really push and say, well, you're going to differentiate in the experience, because, and I always say this, a mass market car, for example, a Nissan, is it that much better or worse than a Honda or than a Toyota? The answer is no. So how do you differentiate those experiences? How do you get in that consideration set if the cars are going to be pretty much the same? Are Crest and Colgate, are they different toothpastes? They're not. So where is that little, that inch to make a difference is quite slim.
that is a huge, probably aha moment. One of the many. See, that's what happens with pontificating, and it's why podcasts are great. But when that inch of space is well, I want to back up a little bit, because when it's identified, that's great, awesome, we have that. If it's not, if the need for it, if there's folks listening that are a Crest and Colgate in their industry, and maybe they're having that gulp of with the truth bomb that Ari just dropped. What are your first steps in kind of, I don't want to say digging out of that hole, but
Mhm.
kind of.
So one of the things that we believe in feverishly is less, not more, at VSA. And the purpose that you read out at the start of the podcast of we design for a better human experience is true to our core. And what that means is that we really dig to find that value exchange between the brand and the audience. And that can be, B2B, or it can be B2C. It makes no difference, the same process. And really understanding, great, I have this product or service I can offer you, audience on the other side, what do you need? And what is the point where it's not just how am I fulfilling unmet needs, but what else am I giving you, and what is that mutual value exchange? And the reason that matters is because technology has enabled brands to not have to think a lot up front, because you can A/B test everything.
Yeah.
So you can have a very light hypotheses and then just go and market and be like, let me put 55 versions of this message and see what sticks. And then I can tweak here and there. The challenge for that is that you're doing it at the expense of your audience, because you're just
Yeah.
creating
Oh,
noise. And you're the one on the other side that has to be like, wait, have I not listened to this 50 times? Why am I getting this ad for khaki pants for 57 times? If I already know, and if you look closely, they probably just changed a word in the title, or they put the khakis sideways versus front, there's so
yeah.
much you can do now on the backside versus the front side of the equation. And we're the opposite. We try to minimize the risk really try to dig deep and understand what are those triggers that matter, and then connect who that brand is with those triggers. Because then you say, I'm going to execute not just what's going to move the needle today, but what's going to move my brand positioning forward. And that's very different from just optimizing for sales in the moment versus optimizing for brand long term.
On Brand will be right back after this.
Hey, creators, podcasters, and brands, if you work on Instagram at all, you have to be tired of the limitations of link in bio. Well, there's a solution. Stampede.social is the ultimate Instagram tool that will change the way you engage with customers, fans, and followers. With Stampede.social, you go beyond a single bio link and instead slide into your fans' DMs. Fire off an automated direct link to wherever you want to send them straight from your posts and lives. This link is only sent to the fans who ask for it, so you'll know exactly who loves your content the most. And Stampede.social does so much more. It gives you back the power of knowing who is engaging with you. It makes it easy to engage with them using AI, and using Stampede.social gives you insights about how your Instagram profile is performing with super robust reports. Drive more clicks, more sales, more followers, and have more time to do what you really love, creating that amazing content. Join the ranks of the world's savviest Instagram creators who already trust Stampede.social. It's a true game changer and will transform the way you connect and engage with your Instagram fans forever. Just for you creators, use our limited time exclusive promo code MPN50. That's MPN50 and get 50% off any monthly or annual subscription tier at checkout. Are you ready to create a stampede of fans back to your content? Don't miss out on this special deal. Head over to Stampede.social.
Support for On Brand and all shows on the Marketing Podcast Network is provided by ActiveCampaign. With ActiveCampaign, you can create and send email campaigns, manage your leads and customers, create landing pages, set up automated workflows, and track your results all in one approachable platform. It's no wonder ActiveCampaign has over 185,000 happy customers across the globe, such as the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. They integrate Salesforce with ActiveCampaign to automate a thank you email to all those who visit the museum, and in doing so, share a form to gather their feedback. That then automatically triggers follow-up messages based on the feedback they receive, including returning to the museum for another visit. For a limited time, ActiveCampaign is offering on-brand listeners a chance to double your contacts for free when you sign up at activecampaign.com/activate. That means if your email list has 10,000 contacts, you only need to pay for 5,000. Or you can pay for the 10,000 and get an extra 10,000 contacts totally free. Go to activecampaign.com/activate to sign up today. That's activecampaign.com/activate. Terms and conditions apply. Now, back to the show. So you made a really good point there on technology making us lazy, which you didn't say. Those are my words, not yours. But as brand builders, because I think sometimes we do lean on that. Hey, we'll just test everything, and we forget about the other side of that. And it's ironic because we start out with such a customer-focused mindset. We're going to come up with the best appeal as a result of all of this testing, and we forget about what it's like, the khaki pants scenario that you walked us through. Of boy, I've seen nonstop ads for these pants, and yeah, there's probably like one word that's different. So, like, what are you really learning from all of this? And moreover, what are you creating as a result of it? So definitely something important to think about. So how can we, I was going to say, test differently, test better, test mindfully, use the tech in a way that is smart and back to your I love the VSA. One of my favorite things to say is more isn't always better. Sometimes more is just more.
Is more, yeah.
So how can we be smart about the tech that we're deploying up front to learn things that are actually useful and aren't going to, tax the customer?
Yeah, I mean, two things. One's a soft approach and one's a hard approach. The soft approach is empathy, and that comes honestly from our design heritage. VSA was founded 40 years ago by designers, and designers are human centered because you have to when you're design. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of bad design out there. Don't get me wrong. There's many uncomfortable chairs in the world, but there's a lot of really comfortable ones where someone's really thought about, every posture and every way you sit and how many hours are you sitting and, what is the curvature of your back and your spine and what is the difference in weight between men and women. And, so there's designers inherently have to think about the human on the other side. If you're designing a cross street, or a walkway that crosses a busy street, you have to think about traffic and when the sun hits and are you going to be able to see the sign. Like there's all these inherent considerations in the human sort of the human needs, and that's empathy. So you have to start there, and that's you can develop methodologies to get there. You can do research. You can even just have strategic conversations. Like not every project we do has a massive piece of research. A lot of it are strategic
Right.
exercises in understanding this. And then on the other side is actually really doing the work to develop best in class creative. We have this. It sounds like we have all these acronyms, but we don't. We just have a few that we really like. We have this. Our media people have this methodology called PMR, where they look at all your performance marketing, and they look at 70 or 80 different points to really assess where you can improve and where you are doing great. And they give you a score for all of these. So you look at creative and social and sort of best in class rules. And 9 out of 10 times we can improve performance based on tweaks on, hey, best in class X means this. Here's how you change that. That improves the experience. So you have to basically just to say like it's an endless process that starts honestly at the beginning of the work and not just at the end.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about VSA's heritage in design, and I think that's such an important. Again, it kind of comes full circle back to what you said of the people say about brand being fluff, and I feel like the same accusation gets lobbed at design, and that's such important work, and especially as you just kind of laid it out in terms of empathy and being human centered. I also wanted to talk about the fact that your clients are varied from blue chip to B2B
Yep.
to startups. I always feel like the conventional wisdom in the business of strategic consulting is that you want to really drill down and know one of those. I
Mm-hmm.
personally, I get the logic of preaching that, but I do not enjoy the work of doing that. Uh, and because I enjoy the variety, but I also think there's things that we learn. I think, especially as things are changing, at the rate that they are, I think that there's things that we can learn from one industry or one size or one type of business that can be applicable to other. And I wonder if you've found that in your work with clients of all shapes and sizes.
It's such a great question and a keen observation because we debate this internally. So I'm very impressed that you picked up on that because you're right. There are agencies that are just B2B agencies and they double down on that.
Right.
And there are obviously consultancies that do much more, sort of consumer work and they double down on that. I think the reason we do both, and I've thought about this a lot as, in my role as chief growth officer, the reason we do both is because again, back sort of inherent to our design thinking, we are systems thinkers. And obviously, we're not just designers, we're designers and strategists and data scientists and media analysts, and creative thinkers. What really unites everyone at VSA is we're systems thinkers. And that means that you're not just doing one thing or making one thing, you're thinking of how that fits in a broader context and how that actually helps to solve a business problem. We say a business problem is a human problem. So when you think of it that way, it's less about the industry or the type of work and um, more about how you're thinking of a business challenge. So that's one thing. And then the second thing that I wanted to say as you were asking the question is this world where B2B brands and B2B experiences are horrible or boring or don't have to meet the standards of today's world, those days are long gone.
Yeah.
So B2B experiences have to be consumer grade experiences because that is the context that those people that you're dealing with will bring to the table. So if they're on whatever social media they're on or whatever apps they're using or whatever features they have on whatever their app du jour is, they're going to want you to bring that to the table when you're having business conversations. If you're doing sales enablement, that has to feel like you're on a Threads app. It can't feel like it's an old PowerPoint deck from the 80s. So that's when you think of it that way, then again, what you're bringing is a thinking that you can spread across, whether it's a B2B or it's a B2C or a startup even, Now, having said that, what varies for sure is the type of challenge. So big blue chip organizations. I mean, we work with IBM. We've worked with them since almost the beginning. So 30-year, 40-year relationship. Google, AT&T. Legacy organizations have different challenges. They have to pivot. They have to maintain their position. They have to continuously strive to understand their customers. Startups obviously are all about definitional work. They're just starting. They don't have as much money to invest in brand. Does brand matter? How do I build that? I'm going through Series C funding. So now I have to have proof of concept in different ways. So now I invest in brand. So they're just different business challenges, but we would still come at it with the same sort of systems thinking. What is the better version of a human experience in a specific category?
I love that. That was really. One, that was not an easy question that I asked you. And in terms of picking up on it, I think about it in my own work because I've avoided it too. So selfishly, that's where I feel like some of my better questions come from. But I love how you took what again was a hard question and really brought it back to the business challenges that are different as opposed to the businesses themselves, which
Yeah.
have nuance and all of that. But really, yeah, that's a much better way of saying it than my generic. Hey, we have more in common than we think. But
Well, and I'll tell you one more thing, Nick, and this happens, I can't tell you how many times it happens. When we get especially if it's a B2B campaign or sort of B2B advertising project, when they give you an RFP or a brief, they don't say, "Oh, I want to be like, I don't know, whatever other B2B in their category." What they say is like, "Well, I want to be like Apple." I
yeah,
want to be like Nike, or I want to be like whatever, whatever the brand that they respect is. So the benchmarks that they're looking at for their B2B businesses are not B2B businesses.
well, that's really interesting. And as we sit here in the midst of a brand conversation, it seems like the lexicon of branding is even though, there's all the lists of B2B brands showing up on the, as top brands themselves. But by and large, you're absolutely right that the conversation often starts, our lexicon is almost as we talk about brands, I want to be the Nike, the Apple, the Starbucks of this space that I'm in. So that's an important point too, and why I don't always love the kind of just the closing of the ears of we're B2B. We don't want to hear examples from that, because that's often where a lot of this starts.
Yeah, and I think people forget to, um, if you dissect Nike, or if you dissect Apple, or I mean, Starbucks is interesting too because it's gone up and down.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a lot of work, a lot of spend, and they're likely examples of companies that started with a very strong point of view, and that had a very strong soul of who they wanted to be and what they believe in. The challenge with a lot of brands is sort of the manufactured perspective
Yeah.
and the lack of conviction in who they are. And that's like, I think of brands as, I mean, they're entities. It's, you have you're a defined entity of a personality. You have to stick to it. People think it's more important to change than to be consistent, and I'm not sure that that's right. If you stand for what you believe in, I mean, Apple's never wavered. They've become more producty in the last decade, and actually, I'm a bit bored by them,
Yeah.
but they still sort of believe in a better human tech experience, and challenging the status quo, and bringing beauty and delight into the category.
That's a great point. And like you said, the looking at those companies in terms of their purpose. And I think that's the other kind of, for lack of a better phrase, the oh shit moment that can happen as
Hmm.
a result of this is, oh, we don't have one of those, and it's even hard to define it as one of those, because that's really hard to reverse engineer purpose. So it's why it's worth all of the headlines and podcast interviews that subject is getting as well.
Yeah, I think it's part of it. Um, I mean, we live in a capitalist world, and obviously we're all part of it, and
Yeah.
support it. But part of, I think, the losing of the soul of brands is because we really just cared about shareholder value, versus what we call multiple stakeholder value,
Yeah.
meaning you have to care about the yes, of course, your audience and your shareholders and guess what, and your employees, and guess what, you have to care about the environment, and guess what, you have to care about society at large, and you have to care, like, there's a lot that brands have to do today, and hopefully that's for the better, meaning it's forcing them to be more than shareholder value. But for, gosh, how many decades? I don't know, way before my time, it was all the only thing that mattered were margins and profit. Now you can't get away with that if you're hurting your employees, or the environment, or scamming your audience. So it's changing, but it's going to take time.
Well said. Well, we have talked about some big topics. Let's make it a little easier here and talk about a brand that has made you smile recently.
So I love that question. So I don't know where I saw this, and I love how it's phrased because it literally made me smile. But I saw I don't know if it was an ad or a banner from IKEA. Remember IKEA? People don't
Yes.
talk about IKEA anymore. And they had come up with this, what I think is honestly genius idea of using the time you travel to IKEA as a form of payment. And I imagine the business problem was, oh my God, IKEAs are far. People are not traveling to go to IKEA anymore. I'm making this up. I don't work on it, but I imagine that was the conversation.
Yeah.
So if you're 50 miles, you accrue whatever. I don't know if it's 50. I don't know if it's $1 a mile, but you literally accrue, and there's a video of a guy going like, "Oh, okay, the soap dish holder. I'm gonna pay for that with time. Great. Oh, you have $50 in time. Great. I'm gonna pay." I mean, it's spectacular idea of
Yeah.
using the time travel to get to IKEA, and then you can accrue. So I imagine you can, go a few times and then buy yourself a bed.
I love that. I love that. And I love
Isn't
that
that genius?
it is, and it makes me smile. And your analysis of it also makes me smile because I sort of feel like some of us that work on brand strategy type of things, whenever we see things out in the wild, I think it's the natural place where our minds go is to take it apart and imagine. Like you said, I didn't work on. I wasn't a part of the work, but we all kind of give our mind a little workout trying to imagine what that conversation must have been like, and that sounds that's where my mind would have gone, and I think that's a great way to approach it, and definitely makes me smile. All right, where can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
Yes, so our website, vsapartners.com, and then all our social handles at VSA Partners. We're yeah, we're everywhere. I think we have to catch up on Threads. We may be a week behind, but uh, that'll be conversation for another podcast.
I was going to say a week behind is just is a hilarious way of thinking about it, and probably true. So, well, we will link up to all of that as current as possible in our show notes, which folks can always find at onbrandpodcast.com. All right, thanks for being on brand with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a fun and rich conversation.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.